If you pay attention to any Falcons games this year,
Whoa.
you will see plenty of ghosts in the stands
Yes, you
because
will.
there's nobody at these games. And, you know, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution had an article earlier this year that points out the difference between the announced attendance versus who's actually there. And the gap is pretty significant. And the announced attendance was plus 70,000 on Sunday for the Falcons game against the Rams. But any shot that you saw of the stadium, unless everybody was in the bathroom at the same time, it was. And look, bottom line is it's a business. You got to get people interested in your product. And who's interested in the Falcons right now, Chris? And it's amazing to me that Arthur Blank, the owner of the Falcons, isn't ready to pull the trigger on a coaching change, especially with 3 interim coaches on staff. Now, what he's saying and what he ultimately does if they lose to the Seahawks may be 2 different things. That's the power and the beauty of being the guy who can roll out of bed any given day and say, I'm making a coaching change. But he just seems like he's being a little stubborn on this because everybody seems to want him to do it. He's digging in. Well, what are you waiting for, especially when we know at the end of the year a change is going to be made?
Yeah, it certainly seems pretty inevitable that the change is going to be made. What he's waiting for, I don't know. I think the thing that I find peculiar a little bit is just this. Like, going into the 2016 season, the year the Falcons went to the Super Bowl and blew that big lead and all that, you know, I knew from very reliable people at that time that Arthur Blank wasn't exactly in love with Dan Quinn and that it was going to take a playoff run and probably winning a playoff game for him to save his job. Now, because they did go to the Super Bowl, that buys you an extra year or two, certainly, and they went to the divisional playoff game the year after. But last year, the wheels fell off, and of course, this year, they are totally off. I don't know exactly what he's waiting for. Maybe he just thinks that there's no need to do it during the season and that he can still get accomplished what he needs to get accomplished in the offseason if he just stays the course and lets Dan Quinn finish the year.
Yeah, I think that it's not going to happen. It's not in the cards this year. And, you know, at some point you got to do something to try to energize the team. And maybe he realizes that it's just not going to matter. You know, is it a talent issue? Is it a coaching issue? And maybe it's just they've signed the wrong guys. They've extended the wrong guys. They're stuck with Matt Ryan. We answered this question yesterday on PFTPM. If they would trade him, if they could even find a trade partner for his $20 million salary next year, the cap charge would be $42 million. $9 million more than the cap charge to keep him on the team in 2020. So they're stuck with Matt Ryan. They're stuck with Julio Jones. They just got to find somebody who can get more out of those guys.
Yeah, well, definitely get more out of them. And, you know, I think you can question how they constructed their team a little bit. You know, they've let the team kind of run the team. They've let the players dictate who gets contracts. They've been reluctant to make tough decisions, maybe to get rid of guys that aren't worthy of being paid the way they should be paid, and yet they've given them more money for what they did do in the past instead of what they're going to do in the future. I mean, they're more top-heavy than the Seattle Seahawks were when the Seahawks were going to Super Bowls and things like that. There's no depth on the team. It seems like 7 or 8 guys are making like over 50% of the salary cap, and that's just not going to be a way to get it done ultimately, especially when you have 1 or 2 injuries. They show themselves, and then the team falls apart.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.